morning, everyone that's joining us from Eastern Time Zone. Good afternoon or good evening, anyone that's joining us from Rwanda, Africa, or Europe. It's great to see we have participants joining us across several different continents. So that's great to see. So we are delighted that you've taken time out of your busy schedule on a Saturday. I know Saturday, lots of running around errands and everything like that, or several different appointments, or for many of you folks back home, obviously in the evening. So really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule for this Rwandapreneur session. My name is Imanzi Katari, and I am the co-founder of Rwandapreneur. Rwandapreneur is a platform to connect, amplify, and to increase the global awareness of entrepreneurs that are committed to Rwanda's socio-economic growth. And we are delighted to have our special guest, Dianne Dusaidi. First off, Dianne, how are you doing?
Did you just call me Diana, Imanzi?
Dianne, I know.
Oh my God, I've known you your whole life. That is serious.
I know. I always still mix it up. I know I shouldn't. But how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I hope you can hear me well. It's just started raining, so.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, thanks for having me. I know it's been a long time coming, so thanks for that.
No. Thank you for jumping on, and for accepting the invitation. And as you mentioned, I've known you for quite some time, I would say, but for our audience that's joining us here today, I want them to really get to know Dianne
Sure.
and the amazing work that you're doing, and to really spotlight the incredible initiatives that you're up to, and also really just to provide some really strategic insights for our participants. And so, with this session, we decided to really unpack really just how to go, for any entrepreneurs that are here, or any aspiring entrepreneurs, or those that are currently, in business, in terms of, how to really take that ideation, take that idea, and actually move it to action. And so, following, you, Dianne, in your career, and I know you have been involved in several different initiatives, and really, been involved in this space for a while. But before we get into that, just want to give, a quick bio, or for anyone who doesn't know Dianne, she is an amazing, super talented businesswoman based there in Kigali, Rwanda. But you have deep roots also here in Canada, so obviously that's where the connection comes in. So actually, Dianne was in Canada for quite some time, and moved back to Rwanda a while ago, and has been involved in several different initiatives. So Dianne is an MBA graduate. She is also right now currently the program partner for MasterCard Foundation, based in Kigali, Rwanda. She is the co-founder of Uplus Rwanda, which is a fintech startup, which I'll definitely love to hear more insights on that. She's as well a business coach for Big Sis in Business as the founder, startup coach for Google, Startup Accelerator, founder or co-founder of Legacy 45, and recently has been appointed as the chair of the board to AB Bank in Rwanda. So that's just a brief, summary of all the incredible work that Dianne has really been involved in. And so we're really delighted to have this conversation. And so at any point in time during today's conversation, if you have any questions, feel free to write your questions into the chat. I have just a couple questions that I have for Dan, but really want to make this interactive. And so that's really our focus at Rwandapreneur, is that, we really want to be supporting entrepreneurs that are based in the diaspora, and also on the continent there in Africa, or even those that have an interest in investing in Rwanda as well, because also realizing that we do have many folks and even personally that I've connected with, even as I've been going through this journey of Rwandapreneur, and that they have an interest in Rwanda, they want to invest in Rwanda, they want to really how to do business in Rwanda, and so they're looking for tips, they're looking for strategies, and so we're really delighted to have this types of session to really provide that practical insights and advice. But maybe just to kick things off, Dan, I guess going through your resume there, and you've been involved in several different entrepreneur initiatives, and I'm just wondering, what are the three phrases or words, if you want to call it, that you would use to describe how you have approached your entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, thanks, Imanzi. And when you're reading the CV and you said recently appointed, I was like, oh, I wonder what he's going to say. I had forgotten. Yeah, I do have my hands in many things, but I think the three phrases I would say, like never fail to try. Never fail to try. I would also say, the power of giving. So never fail to try, actually. It used to be a painting that was my dad's, and it lived in our office for our home office for many years, long before COVID. And it was just on top. And at the time, it was something from the 90s, like early 90s, and it had a dog on a computer. And it said, never fail to try, right? Imagine a dog on a computer. I'm sure like now dogs are on TikTok, but at the time it was something so out there. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting picture. So I think it always just stayed with me. The other thing is the power of never giving up. That really is true. I think it's Jay-Z who says that often. But the power of never giving up, it really is, there is something to it. It doesn't mean that if something is completely not working that you don't pivot. You should absolutely pivot, but you continue trying, right? What else would I say? Oprah says all the time, doubt means don't. So if you doubt something like, should I do this? Should I not do that? Even if, I don't know, the offer is great, if something is in your gut telling you not to do it, then you probably shouldn't. Just listen to your own instincts, your own intuition. So those are really, I think, the three that I would say I live by in my entrepreneurship journey, but also life in general.
Yeah, no, those are good. I think definitely sometimes like when we reflect back and when we look sometimes how far we've gone, and so sometimes it's easy not to slow down and not to reflect and realize, okay, like what are like those key models that you live by, that you stand by, and it's great to hear that you definitely have been championing a lot and really have been really looking to really try to get more plugged into different areas. And so I guess sort of diving into it, and actually, again, I think before I mentioned, in terms of the questions, if you have questions, actually, yeah, you could put it into the Q&A feature on the Zoom webinar, or you could put it into the chat, and the team will go through any questions you have. So really, this is really a great opportunity to really get your questions out there. If you are thinking about getting involved in business of any kind in Rwanda, if you're looking to really understand the sort of startup landscape or anything like that, definitely, this is your time to ask those questions. And so just moving on, I'm wondering in terms of now, in terms of what type of strategy, or what has been your strategy in particular for launching multiple business ventures, and in fact successful business ventures. And I guess one thing that I've seen when talking with folks is when is the best time to actually stay in a business, to pivot or to exit? Because I think personally sometimes knowing when the exit strategy is and realizing how to actually then say, okay, well, I've done what I've done, as much as I could do in this regard. I push all the way. Now let me exit out and let me work on something else. And for you being a serial entrepreneur, like, how do you know when to go through these different stages?
Yeah. Okay. So there are two questions in one. Let me take the first one. I think the first one around strategies. For me, honestly, I don't complicate my life. Everything I get involved in is an extension of me, and usually out of frustration, right? Whatever I end up doing is a result of like severe annoyance. You know, when I started Rise and Shine Rwanda, the TV show, I lived in Rwanda from 1997. And I don't know if, you know, I know you come on holiday, but I don't know if you would remember, like in the 90s, we would, like TVR would close, like it would reach like 10 p.m. or so and it would stop working. You know, growing up in Toronto, TV is 24/7, right? And then there was really nothing interesting to watch, in my opinion, especially for a child, a teenager, a young adult. So I said, you know, and then DSTV and multi-choice and all of that was really, it was, you know, it was expensive. It was definitely a budget that you needed. So I said, you know, why can't we just make affordable local television? Why can't we make local content with people that we know? Young people have opinions. They have businesses that they've started. Why can't we highlight them? Also, you know, living abroad for so many years, there was always talk of Rwanda in the media, and it was always really negative, right? The negative storytelling. And yet, you know, living in Rwanda for so many years, I saw the change. And I said, you know, if we're not going to be the change, then who is, right? So that's how I started Rise and Shine. And then out of Rise and Shine, it was such an expensive show to make. That's probably why people don't make local television, is because it was a daily show, right? A daily morning show. And it was expensive. And I said, you know, I really need to fundraise one way or another. At the time, it was funded by developing partners. And they too would come to me and say, you know, developing partners, after like a few years, they move on to other areas. So you need to find a way to become sustainable. So I looked into like Kickstarter. Kickstarter didn't really work for our market. And I said, you know, let me start something, which ended up later on becoming Uplus. And then Big Sis, you know, I just had so many, you know, trials and tribulations in my entrepreneurship journey. And I said, you know, I wish I could just help other people trying to start. And I feel like I do it naturally for friends and family when they just come and sit on my couch, or, you know, we're just hanging out. They'll say, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I said, you know, maybe there's something here. And, you know, all of this experience, because as, you know, when you're in the middle of things, you don't realize how like dynamic it is or how special it is. I didn't realize, you know, going to media and fintech and, you know, working with developing partners and health and e-commerce, that actually offered me a lot of experience in different sectors. So I said, you know, why don't I use that experience and give back? So that's really what Big Sis is about. So in terms of strategies, it was always, you know, entrepreneurs, for lack of a better word, are problem solvers, right? That's what we are. So what is frustrating you? The fact that there's nothing interesting on television to watch, then create it yourself. You're the solution. Kickstarter doesn't work for our market, so then create something that works with mobile money. That was Uplus. So it was really, how do I solve those answers? How do I solve those questions? And how would I actually use this? Would I sit down and watch this show? Would I use Uplus? Yeah, and if I can, then my friends and family probably will too, because we have you know, similar likes and dislikes. So yeah, that's really how I go about it. In terms of when to stay and exit, I think for me, what I do is I stay when I can still learn something, because in that way, I'm very much like a nerd. I'm very much like an engineer. I need to be learning something new constantly, and or contributing, right? If I can do it in my sleep, then that's not something I want to do for the rest of my life. So staying, if you can continue learning, and if you can still contribute to whatever it is that you're doing, then I would say stay for as long as you're still enjoying that work. Exiting, so it's the opposite, right? So whenever you're not learning, you're not contributing, and then maybe, you know, if it's like a toxic environment, and toxicity can show up in many forms, right? It can be a great paying job, and maybe, you know, it's the life of, you know, you're traveling the world, etc. But maybe you're having health issues because of that. Your back goes out, you are getting blood clots, you know what I mean? You don't have time with family and friends, and therefore you don't really have work-life balance, which we all strive for. We're all a work in progress. But if something is really out of balance, then maybe that's something you need to stop it and think about and say, is this really worth it? Is it worth the money? Is it worth the headache that it's giving me? Can I contribute differently? I think that's probably when you start thinking of when to exit. Was there another part of that question?
Well, yeah, I guess you kind of addressed it, I guess, also in terms of, so you talked about the staying, talked about the exiting, and then in terms of also pivoting, right? So I guess that's been the word that has been used over the past year and a bit in terms of COVID. But in terms of innovation, actually, we see a lot of companies, not able to quickly adapt, and so obviously, not able to quickly pivot. And when is a good time to pivot or any situation like that?
And I think pivoting is a part of life, right? It's a change, right? And some people react well to change, and some people don't. In business, you should pivot when it's like coming from the customer or from the market, right? Whoever you're selling to. So, for example, with COVID, it forced restaurants who were, traditional, brick and mortar restaurants, go in for dining, get takeout, to pivot and go online. Whether they wanted to, it was like stay in business and go online or close. So they had to learn how to do like online delivery and stuff like that. So I do think, if that's the market, if that's the only market you're going to have is by people ordering to their house, and therefore you have to invest in a website or a call center number or a motorcycle in our neck of the woods, then that's what you have to do to stay in business. And it's forcing you to pivot. But I think that's just, it's a forced example, but I think generally speaking, you need to listen to what your customers are saying. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, those are some great insights, and I really like just how you illustrate in terms of, knowing when to stay, to pivot, and to exit. In terms of like if you're still learning, if you're still enjoying it, try to see it, further as much as you can. Pivoting, I guess, yeah, like you said, understanding what the market needs, and the being very client centric, and then exiting in terms of, is this not conducive with your current lifestyle, and now you maybe need to exit to a different area. So no, that's great. Um, so now maybe diving into it a bit more, and getting into the topic I really want to really unpack. And I'm wondering in terms of practical, if you could share some practical tips or strategies for entrepreneurs that may be stuck in that ideation phase. So maybe they're thinking even before staying, they're thinking they're still in that ideation stage. They could be experiencing roadblocks, whether, funding, partners, anything of that sort. And they're looking to move forward to the next stage of execution. How can they overcome an what's called a analysis paralysis situation?
Mm-hmm. I think the ideation phase is the funnest. It's the you get to like see your ideas come to life. And I think when that happens, you should try it on the people who know you best. So your friends and your family, always start there. Even if they're like really, we all have those like judgmental friends and family, but they're going to be like the negative customer, right? So it's like, you just need to think of them as, this is still great experience, right? This is still great feedback. So always start there. I would say also look for like, people who think like you, or like or in that industry. So try to find them. Like when I was starting Uplus, like when I had this idea of fundraising in that format, I went to KLab. So KLab is a tech hub in Kigali. And I just like lived there. I'm not an engineer. I had no business being there, but I said, I'm looking for young entrepreneurs or young engineers who could help me build this idea. What do you think about this idea? Is this the best way to do it? Can we, bring in the MNOs, the telecoms? Can I have both MTN and Airtel? And I think at the time we even had Tigo. And they would give me their advice. I'll start with MTN, or, build a platform like this, like that. the user interface, et cetera, et cetera. And I really got to understand their terminology, and I got to be surrounded by them. And then they know people in the industry who could also, connect to servers, to et cetera. So definitely like people who think like you and who are in that industry. So whether it's K-Lab or Private Sector Federation, the different chambers, now we have like Westerveld. What is Westerveld? It's like a co-working space. Different hubs. I think there's a tourism inc hub, there's an agriculture hub, there's a tech hub, you know what I mean? So there's just even more options now. So just go and be with like-minded people, and then from there ideas will grow. Always test out your ideas. The whole never allow yourself to fail. For me, I would rather try it and fail than fail to try, because I would go mad thinking of like just wondering, oh my God, what could have been, would drive me mad. So I would rather say I tried it, it didn't work. Maybe it's not for this market, maybe not in this way, maybe not this time, but I've tried it, and it's out of my brain, it's out of my system. I'm just that kind of person. So I think that's always something that people should do, just try. In terms of things like funding, I know I even talked about this yesterday on a different panel. There's this like this love affair with the next unicorn, right? And getting like big investors and VC capital and all of that. Let me tell you something. Go back to basics. Start with your customer. Customer will always be king. Even these VC high valuations, blah, 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 all are based on revenue that comes from where? Your customers. So always aim for pleasing your customers, getting that revenue in from them. Of course, grant funding is always appreciated. And, search the web. That's where the chambers come in handy, actually, because the chambers will tell you what's coming up. And maybe there's like some kind of competition that you can be a part of and hopefully win. Even if you don't, you network. Yeah, but I think definitely just trying to get the MVP out there, the most valuable product, and then really test that market, get customers, be agile, to the customer's experience and their feedback, change it accordingly, and continue to get revenue that way. And then look for funding. I'm never an advocate of debt funding, especially in the beginning, because that can really put you in a pickle, especially on this part of, on this side of the world where interest rates are really high. I would say definitely focus on perfecting your product for the customer, getting a customer to buy. Of course, always start with savings if you can, or friends, fools, and family, then grant funding, then continue. I'd probably even say VC funding over debt funding in the beginning. But you have to know how to negotiate those kind of contracts. That's why you can hit me up at Big Sis, but you can also, talk to other people, commercial lawyers and stuff like that, or people in the chambers will have people that they can recommend to work with you, just to make sure that you're not giving your company away for free, right? Because that's, VCs are sharks, for lack of a better word, especially early stage companies. Yeah, they can really take you for your money. So just make sure that you're covered and that you protect your idea. At RW, if you're in Rwanda, the Rwanda Development Board, or wherever you are in the world, always protect your name, your idea, your domain, etc., copyright, and all of that, trademark. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great points. And actually, on your last point there, in terms of IP strategy, copyright, like that's like a big thing. And I've been monitoring social media also, back home, and so I've been seeing over the past couple months that like that has come up time and time again in terms of copyright and branding and all of that. So it's sort of like in those early stages, sort of like don't rush the process to get to that next stage, right? So make sure you when you're setting up your business, go into the strategy. Okay, what is your IP strategy? Then what is your marketing strategy? What is your funding strategy? Like I said, if possible, bootstrap, because like those VCs are sharks, and they'll want to get that IP right there and then just go and exploit it. So obviously it's a balancing act, right? So especially when now you hear in the news and all these rounds of of investment and funding, and obviously you've seen the big markets, Nigeria and so many other places, which is great and it's exciting. But then you also have to look back. Okay, what was the early initial stages, and how was it structured, so that when you then go out to market, you're then on a more level footing to now negotiate that. But great insights, actually. So there's some questions that have come in, and so this is great. So I really want to get to some of these questions that have come in from the participants. And so Ignace asked a question. So it says, "Hi Dan, I'm a Rwandan entrepreneur working on the verge of launching an exciting retail banking tool soon. I have two questions. One, how would you advise local entrepreneurs approach the part of finding an advisor / mentor? And two, what does the future hold for AB Bank retail banking?" So I guess also a very specific question as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Ignace, I think, yeah. First of all, good luck with your endeavor. I mean, we need more financial products on the market. In terms of finding an advisor or mentor, okay, here's the thing, and I've said this many times, and I always get in trouble, but I'll keep repeating it, and I'll try to explain myself better and better. For me, I don't like the word mentor, because it always assumes like somebody's like talking to you, like somebody's even talking down to you. And it's like it's one way, right? It really needs to be both ways. And I think the only way to really, get advice from somebody who has been in the industry that you're looking to work in is to talk to somebody in that industry. So if you're in the banking industry, I would say probably look into the Bankers Association, or look into bankers, actual bankers, if you know any of the bankers, preferably at senior management level, and ask them out for coffee and say, I just want to understand the landscape of the banking industry in Rwanda. And I have this idea, and you're not even pitching to them. You're just saying, I'm just asking for advice. What do you think? And then they will give you advice, and then you too can give them advice on, this is how I think, the landscape of the industry needs to change with solutions like mine. And then you start from there, and then you can do that with like maybe 3 to 5 different people, and then you will gravitate towards one or two, because you will find things in common. Maybe it's humor, maybe it's a past experience, maybe you both lived in I don't know which part of the world, maybe you both entered the financial industry at the same time. You'll find some kind of common ground. And then you can, you'll get to know the person better, and you'll see if you have like the similar values, etc. And then that person becomes, I would say, like an industry friend, right? Which is to me more important than a mentor, because there are people that you can call on. And I have, okay, I don't like the word mentor, but a mentor, advisor, counselor, it's really an industry friend. These are people that you can call on at any given time and say, can you tweak this proposal for me? Or I have this pitch tomorrow. Can you read it briefly? What do you think? Give me your comments or feedback. Maybe don't do it the day before, give them some time. But yeah, just people that you can call on at any given time. So I would think more industry friends. If there are people that are, a bit more senior than you, then yeah, maybe the word is advisor or mentor, but I think the strategy should still be the same. So reach out to them and really give them, your feedback on the industry and hear from them. And that's how I'd go about that. What was the second part of the question? I think it was AB Bank. So AB Bank is actually reverting back to being just a microfinance bank. And we, so we're just going to serve the rural population really, and up to a certain level. And we're really going to go hard on like agriculture, financial products and stuff like that, because that's just where our client base is. So we're really not, looking into commercial banking. It's not our specialty. It's not our niche. And you have to also know where you're good at, also where there's room to improve in the market. And we just cannot compete with some of the best commercial banks like the Bank of Kigali and the regional banks and stuff like that. But we can definitely compete at the microfinance level, because AB Bank has a lot of experience, in Europe and other parts of Africa in that. So that's where we're going to focus.
Okay, great. Great insights. So I have two follow-up questions. Actually, they're kind of related to funding. So it looks like we've definitely hit on a very popular topic, which obviously definitely comes up when we're talking about startups and entrepreneurs and supporting them in their journey. And so one question came in from Innocent. So he asked, outside of the traditional financial institutions, what are some of the best approaches to accessing funding?
Mhm. Hi, Inosa. I think for sure, as I mentioned before, start with yourself. So what can you put into this business, which is hard, right? Like, let's not act like savings is not an issue. Our savings culture isn't the best. But can you also, will your friends or family invest in your idea? And it can be $10. It can be, for Big Sis in Business, my coaching, that when I first started it, a friend was like, "Oh my God, I love this idea. I'm going to give you like 10K for 20 minutes of your time," or something like that. But the fact that she was willing to pay said, it made me feel like I was onto something. And then you figure out your price point. But yeah, definitely start with friends, families, and fools. Look for grants opportunities. Grants are always the best way because it's technically free money, right? Like, you don't have to pay back. There's no interest on that. And then I would say like locally we have like some competitions, right? So like the hackathons, stuff like that. Like, look for that, because that's also grant funding in a form of competition. So that is great because then you get to learn who else is in the industry and like what are the products that are coming out and how are they thinking. You can also go online, of course, and look for like matching grants. Look for I think there's some programs that do like stipends where they promote entrepreneurs, and they for like 6 months or a year, and they will give you like a salary, right, of some sorts, where you can like live, pay for your basic utility, basic essentials, and still work on your business. Then other things, of course, are like seed funding, venture capital, and then debt funding. Debt funding, I honestly just think it's in the very beginning, unless you have really strong revenue growth, it's just tricky, especially in the times of COVID, where things can change drastically and quickly. Yeah, so venture capital might be a safer bet, but make sure you're not giving out your business away. Yeah, crowdfunding is a great. How do you take advantage of crowdfunding? Yeah, crowdfunding, exactly. That's exactly what Uplus is trying to do. So Uplus Mutual Partners is a fintech of mine that it officially launched last year, but to me, Uplus will always forever be a work in progress. It's something that is very dear to me because even before Rise and Shine, to be honest, I thought of it. Okay, what happened was I was doing my master's in Europe, and I was writing my thesis. And for me, I'm a very practical person. So like literature reviews and stuff like that, I was like, this is a business school. Why are we writing a thesis? Why can't we graduate with a business in mind that we actually want to go and open? So when I was talking to my professor that was helping me with my thesis, he said, you know what, just write your business idea in the format of this thesis, and then but make sure that it's something that you could actually go do. And then we kept talking about, he kept trying to explain to me Bitcoin was really new at the time, and he was like, if you have like $500, just invest in Bitcoin, I promise you won't, whatever. And I had no idea what he was talking about, and I was like, no, that's too far, I don't understand what you mean. I need things that are, again, solutions, right? Solutions to me. And I was a like struggling student abroad, and I said, I'm sure I'm not the only one, and I want my mom to send me money, and I want to send money back, so like cross like international remittances, or so that's really how Uplus started. I said I wanted to do international remittances within the East African region through mobile money. And then that didn't really fly because the telecoms kind of ended up doing it themselves. Like, and you can send money on MTN to Safaricom Kenya, etc. So I put it on the back burner. Then I started Rise and Shine, and then Rise and Shine had financial issues, and I came back to this thing of Kickstarter and mobile money and all of that. So I said, well, why can't I do that for everything? That's how we crowdfund It's a fancy word, right? But it's what we've been doing in Africa for years. We do it all the time for weddings, for funerals, for somebody gets sick, etc. We bring resources together, and we just didn't do it on a platform, right? We would send each other money, and now with mobile money, we send directly like that. But yeah, so crowdfunding, I think, is something that we've done locally for a long time. I just wanted to digitalize it and make it a bit more cool. So it's not just for social causes. It can also be for savings. It can also be for investment, and it can be investment for on the stock market, so like government bonds and stuff like that. But it can also be for investing in new businesses and startups. I could definitely start a group and say, this is my new idea for XYZ company, and send that to all my contacts, and they could give me $5. And that would definitely, help me get started. So that's definitely a way to use Uplus, and that's how I think Uplus is similar to Kickstarter in that way. And and I think what I like with Uplus is that it's versatile. It can be for social causes, it can be for business, it can be for savings, but it's really a community-driven product, right? It's really about the community and generating wealth together, and pulling resources and pulling resources together, and that's just what we've always done. And I think Imanzi and I, we grew up in Toronto, and fundraising was like a part of our childhood. It was a part of our childhood, and of course we're fundraising for different things at the time, but it's definitely ingrained in us that you need to come together as a community to be able to further your passions and get things actually done. Yeah.
No, well, that's great. I'm really happy that you digitized that process, right? Because the crowdsourcing and contribution, that's great. So we could definitely share the link with everyone after, in terms of they want more information about that. I think that'll be a great tool, especially here in the diaspora, and of course also back home as well. One question that was here in the chat that was talking about the earlier topic that we're talking about, the funding. So Peter was asking, so there are a lot of funding opportunities for startups today, and however, how do you choose from the options, and is there like an order? So you talked about angel investor, venture capital, or grants, and I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'm wondering, based on your experience, should there be an order, or how do you approach it?
Yeah, it actually depends on you and your business and what your business needs. For me, my journey has been self-funding, family fools, grants, venture capital. Did I do debt first? Okay, so for one of the companies, I did debt first, which is why I know it's not a good option, So one of the companies I did debt first, then the other one I did just VC first. And I mean, they have their pros and cons, right? But it's all a part of the journey of learning. I wouldn't do that again. If I was to do it again, I would say self, grants, angel, than VC, because VC is just usually a bit higher. So they give you a bit more for less. So they get, like, let's say they give you $300,000 and they'll take 5% of your company, right? Just as an example. But the angel might give you $25,000 and take 25% of your company. So it all depends on where you are and exactly how much you need. And I think, people are really stuck on ownership, which I understand. This is your idea and you have seen it come to life and you want to protect the idea and you have the vision for your company. But because people want to keep 100% of their company, they go towards debt. But debt is tricky. Like, you really need to have strong revenues coming in time after time, or savings in case something goes wrong. So that's why I would say, is 100% of nothing better than 60% of something, right? So you have to weigh your options, and it depends on where you are, and also how much you need. Like, sometimes venture capital might be your only option, because maybe even the banks can't give you however much you need, right? If you need like multi-million-dollar investments for, I don't know, like, let's say you have an energy company or something and it needs, high investments, your only way might be to go through venture capital. So it just depends on where you are in what stage you are at, and
Yeah.
possibly also the industry.
Okay. Great. Thanks for those insights. One question, which my last question that I have, and then I definitely want to open it up more to our participants. But I think this question that I have really address talking about networks, and we kind of talked a little bit about it. And I know there are some folks that are here joining us here today that have had this question in terms of, I guess, as a small business or startup operating in a new environment or market, how do you build meaningful relationships, and how do you nurture your existing or your new networks to unlock high value opportunities? So definitely this question definitely comes up a lot, whether engaging with, if you're a friend of Rwanda, if you're a friend of Africa, or you're thinking about now investing into a new market, into a new area. How do you actually penetrate and build those relationships?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. I honestly, for me, I just never think about it. Like I never think, oh, I must meet that person in that industry to help me get ahead or to give me insights. I think for me, I've been very lucky that it's been organic. And I think it's just important to have, like I said earlier, common ground, because there might even be some people you have looked up to for a long time. Then you get to meet them and they're just either not nice, not inspiring, not helpful. So really to me, and then I think also we look up, right? Sometimes we need to look on the same level, right? Because we are going through the same things, or maybe somebody's just slightly ahead of you in their journey and they have some experience that they can share. So definitely, I think like circles you're in. So beyond friends and family, like I said earlier, go where your industry is. So whether it's a chamber, a hub, etc., go live there for a little bit and get to know people in that environment, in that industry. And then you will gravitate towards each other, the people who think alike and who have the same kind of vision and values. And I think that's a big one, right? You also don't want to associate with people who don't share your values for yourself as an individual, but also for your company and what you want your company to represent. Yeah, I think in terms of networking, it's really just, I think, okay, as an entrepreneur, you do have to put yourself out there. So in Rwanda or anywhere, I would say, definitely the media helps, whether it's social media or traditional media, like the New Times, the papers, the business shows. And there are easy ways to get free publicity. Like you can go on a business show for free, right? And market your, maybe because I worked in television, so I know this, they're always looking for content. They're always looking for content. So that's free marketing to you. And I mean, the eyeballs on the news, or the eyeballs, the readership for the New Times or any, EGA.com or whatever. That's free marketing to you. Even if you're to pay, you can pay something really small. So I would say just getting the word out there, being sincere, be yourself. Just have integrity for yourself and for your company. Never, do something that you would not be proud of. You want to be able to say that you built this business on your back and not any other way. Yeah, don't do any shady business. There are really no shortcuts. And I think the whole point of not having shortcuts is because the journey can be so long, is that, there are ups and downs, and those downs are really just learning experiences. Even though they might not feel like that, as they're happening, but when you look back, you'd be like, oh, I'll never do that again. Like, for example, when I did Rise and Shine, we had to move studios really quickly for a number of reasons. And I went and I put the studio in a house. And bless her, the landlord's heart, she allowed us to do that. But then the studio burnt down. And I kept saying, oh, I'll buy insurance, but right now it's not urgent, right? I need to pay for this, I need to pay for that. And then the studio burned down without insurance. That was a very costly mistake. Thank God the house didn't burn down. Thank God nobody was hurt. But best believe I will always have insurance now, even if you don't, it's a cost that is painful because it's like, oh, it's a chance, but you don't want to take that chance because it can be a very costly mistake. So I think, just be honest and be true to yourself, and then whoever is meant to be in your life and a part of your journey will be.
Great. Definitely, there's no shortcuts, and I definitely like what you said about that. There's no shortcut to life. Sometimes there's no shortcuts, when you're in your entrepreneurship journey, and definitely, building genuine relationships and wanting to be of high integrity is a great trait. Okay, so we do have quite a number of questions here, which have come in. Some of them actually quite specific, which is great. So Tracy asked a question, where would you suggest one could go to find someone who could help to write applications for grants that cover both Canada and Rwanda? Thank you.
Hi, Tracy. It depends. Are you currently in Kigali? I don't know. So if you're in Kigali, there are a number of, I would say, WhatsApp groups. There's like a women's WhatsApp group that I'm thinking of. I think it's called Women Empowering Women. I can share a contact, or you know what you can do? You can side chat me and I can post it on that group, because what I'm thinking is that it's really consultants that would need to help you. And these are consultants who have worked all over the world. Maybe they're based in Rwanda, or they were based in Rwanda, or they have worked with organizations from different countries, like a lot of people. And the reason I'm saying that is because grant writing is really specific. Like if you have never done grant writing before, you cannot learn that on the job, So people who have done grants for like USAID or any of these other developing partners will understand. USAID is American, so I'm sure they can do the same for any Canadian organization. So you can side chat me, and I can see how I can help you with that. But I'm thinking it has to be a consultant, and you would just tell them what you need, and then they can see if they have availability.
Okay, great. I'm loving this. Like this is exactly why we're doing this. Is to create this platform. Hopefully, people can have some offline conversations, and we're just facilitating this. So this is great. Another question here, Pierre asks, how do you go about hiring the right staff or partners for your businesses? And I guess second to that, how much of your formal education helped you with your entrepreneurship, or did it?
Oh yeah, it did. So maybe I'll start with the second one. The MBA helped me because I didn't have any kind of business experience. And I know some people just fumble their way through it. Actually, just before this, I was watching on YouTube. You know how like YouTube, you can go like down a spiral. Anyway, so I was watching the lady of Spanx, Sarah Blakey. Anyway, the founder of Spanx, and she celebrated 20 years recently, and she got her start. And it's a long story, but she got her start through Neiman Marcus, and then Oprah, et cetera, et cetera. And she was saying that, the beauty of her journey is that she did not have business experience, and she did not go to business school. And therefore, it kind of helped her because, the ignorance of what she was doing, like she didn't even realize she was ignorant in that area. So for example, in her story, she was saying how somebody asked her, how did you get to Neiman and Marcus? And she said, or was it, anyway, one of the big stores. And she said, I called them. Like, what do you mean? Like, how what? Because this person who was asking her had said, I've been trying this for 5 to 7 years and it's not working. And I've been trying to get a hold of them, and they're not buying my product. How did you get a hold of them? She's like, I called them. And she said, well, what do you do? And she said, I've been going to these trade shows. And, I go every year and I have a stand and I wait for buyers from this big department store to come pass by and like my product and ask questions. And then, the hope is that they will buy from there. And then she said, and then, Sarah, the owner of Spanx, was like, I didn't even know that these trade shows existed. So my ignorance helped me because then it made me bold enough to call. And because I was bold enough to call, I guess people don't usually do that. They were like, who is this bold person? That is not my story. That is not my journey. That is not what I do. For me, and maybe it's because I have parents. My mom is currently a professor, and my dad, before he was a politician, was also a teacher. Maybe I always feel like I need to learn first and then do. Learn and then do. And my bachelor's degree is in like public administration and governance, so like similar to public policy and politics. So it was really nowhere near business. And what happened was when I moved back home to Kigali, I ended up working for the Rwanda Development Board, and I ended up working for the investment, which is like the investment department, investment board of the government. And I worked in the investment department. And that really opened my eyes to business and just all the opportunities that were there. So I said, I definitely want to start like a media company and other things, but I need to know how to do it. You know, I cannot fumble my way through this. So that's when I went to school and I did my MBA, and then I specialized in international business, which has been really helpful. And, you know, as I think of expanding, you know, Imanzi and I are always talking about, you know, the links between Rwanda and Canada, the diaspora, and what can we do for both. Though that's definitely still on the back burner. You know, when you have like this vision of like the next 10 years or 20 years, it's definitely still part of the plan. And I feel like my business degree has given me those options and just helped me understand the business world, really. What was the first part of that question?
First part was about how do you go about hiring the right staff or partners
Oh,
for
yeah,
your
the right
businesses?
people. Yeah, it's very important to hire the right people. I think when you're starting out, if you're young or you're just starting out with, you know, few resources, you need people who are energetic. You need people who are like-minded. You need people who buy into your vision. You need people who like really understand what you're trying to do, right? And they can roll up their sleeves and they're not title driven. And actually maybe even like not just titles, but like their motivation is beyond titles and money. It's really about, I want to be a part of making something really different, which was great with like the Rise and Shine team. The Rise and Shine team understood that this was like groundbreaking, right? To have young people on television, in the front and in the back, right? Like even the producer at the time was like, how old was she? She was like maybe 27, 26 at the time. So to have such young people be fully engulfed and to have that broadcasted to, you know, over 10 million people was something that they really wanted to be a part of. So I think that's what you really need. You need team members that understand that they are part of a team and that they can do a number of jobs, especially in the beginning when things are not like as clear cut, right? And then they can grow. You also want to help, you know, you have to be a people manager. And by that, I mean, care for your people, take care of them, make sure that that whatever you envision in your company, you can envision them in it and they can grow with it, right? There are different levels that they can go to, but also different departments. Somebody can start in marketing and then they can transition to strategy. You know, they can transition to sales, they can transition to funding. They, you know, are you also providing them with opportunities for growth? Because then they'll stay with you for a much longer time. And that's what you want to do. You don't want to just nurture people for 3 months and then they leave. And then, so you're always, it's just a rotation of new people. Having said that, people do leave. Sometimes even great people leave, which is okay. It's part of people's career journeys, but I think you need to have a solid foundation of, you know, what you're trying to do, and then have people who align to your values and to the company values. And sometimes people can be really great and they just don't align. You know, they're just not a right company fit, so they don't get along with the rest of the team, they don't align with their values, etc. And that person is not the right company fit for this particular company, maybe for another company or maybe for another time, another stage at the company, but not right now. And I would advise that you let them go sooner rather than later, because it's just like a dynamic, like an energy that will just continue to fester. And if you don't control that quickly, you know, your vision can be diverted, and that's not what you're trying to do.
That's great insights, and you know, talking with a lot of founders and startups, obviously the, you know, the access to talent and the access to the right talent at the right time, you know, is something which is like a pain point for a lot, and obviously because we're in this sort of hyper connected world, everyone's looking, for that talent. But like you said, obviously nurturing that servant leadership, it will definitely go like a long way. So that's great.
Yeah, and on that, I think if you are in Kigali, the Rwanda Development Board under the Chief Skills Office has like an internship program. I think it's called the internship program, where they have lots of young people who are looking for jobs, especially now with COVID, and the government will subsidize. They will give a small stipend for like transport and lunch, I think, and you as an employer you can top up. So you can sieve through those CVs and interview them, and really get young, bright people that, just give them a chance, especially for young people. Also, Bridge to Rwanda is also there. And I think they deal with a lot of Rwandans who are coming back from the diaspora. I think mainly from the US. They go to study in the US and they come back. The MasterCard Scholars Program also has young people from all over the world, Rwandans and others that are coming back to their countries or need employment. We also live in a virtual world. Now I can hire somebody in Toronto to help me with Big Sis or wherever. So just be open-minded and know that no matter how good you are or how good they are, there is always a level of training because they don't know your business. So there's always a learning curve. Inbuild that into your patients because somebody's not going to come and day one they're going to be on the ball. There are some superstars out there, but more than likely they will need to come and learn the business. And just general rule of thumb is hire slow, fire fast. Hire slow, fire fast. So you'd rather take your time getting the right people, and then if you get it wrong, let that go quickly, so that you can get the right people in place.
Okay. Thanks for that. Okay, so we are running out of time, but we do have just a few more questions here, which is great. Looks like another specific question. So Jeffrey asks, "Hello, Dan. You mentioned in your introduction that entrepreneurship is to solve a problem. I have an idea in the education sector in Africa. Looking forward to bring a tech product to broadcast education content without any internet connection. I'm currently looking for an IT co-founder to bring the product idea to reality. Where should I start looking for my new IT partner, locally in Africa, in the region of Africa, or anywhere else?"
Oh, that's a great idea. So tech in Rwanda, definitely KLab, ICT Chamber, I would say Kigali Innovation City, but under that is like CMU, Carnegie Mellon, so recent students, recent graduates. I would also say EdTech centers. So even the MasterCard Foundation has an EdTech center, and it's a continental one. So you can maybe message me on LinkedIn, and I can put you in touch with, if you know the area, if you know the country that you're looking into going into, I'll put you in touch. I do know that they have a way of working, so maybe you can apply for their next upcoming cohorts or something. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot, especially with COVID, has made everybody, like online learning and different ways of learning. Whether it's through even at the foundation, we have some partners that have taken their courses on television, because they said that it's actually, at least people have TV. They don't always have broadband. So that's definitely another way. Others use like WhatsApp, because WhatsApp has low data on a lot of the phones. Others use the chatbot, which uses no internet connectivity, and it is like an SMS. So there are a number of ways, and I think you definitely have to look within tech and education, because that's what it is. It's an ed tech product. So start there.
Yeah, no, definitely agree with a lot of what you mentioned. There's lots of accelerators, lots of specific niche sort of incubators. In the case of Rwanda, like you said, EdTech and some of the other innovation groups on there. So definitely feel free to reach out to Dianne. We'll also, in a follow-up, we'll send a follow-up email, and we'll include some of the links that were referenced here in today's webinar. And so, giving you some tools in terms of your next step, but also feel free to reach out to us, Rwandapreneur, and we can also have a chat. Another question was regarding how do you take advantage of crowdfunding to kickstart your initiative? I think you, I guess, kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier, but would you advise people to continue to explore that option?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a little goes a long way, right? So I think the whole friends, family, and fools is kind of that. It's crowdfunding without it being like a professional platform, right? But yeah, so a little goes a long way. Try to pull as much as you can together. Absolutely, if you can, go for it. Try it on Uplus. If you're in Rwanda, because I only currently works in Rwanda, but if you're not, then Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and there are a whole bunch of others. Yeah, I think you need to get help wherever you can, right? And I think a lot of crowdfunding is still very much like donation based, right? I don't think maybe you should do that on Uplus, where like you can invest in the company and get returns after. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that'd be pretty interesting. Yeah, that would be pretty
Yeah,
interesting. So looks like you are definitely exploring an area that is definitely needed, and obviously,
yeah.
the more that you digitize and look through all those different pain points that people are looking to solve through crowdsourcing, I think you'll definitely land on something good. Um, and Peter asked a question here in the chat. I think when you're referencing about the friends and family, and I guess now looking at the culture. So he asked a question. So in a culture driven by perfectionism, it's hard to ask for help because you don't want to be seen as a failure. How can one overcome this cultural perception?
Yeah, I mean, if you worry about failure, you can't really be an entrepreneur, because let me tell you something: the road is bumpy. It
Mm,
can be long and it can be bumpy. I do think our culture is changing. Yeah, I remember when the donors first told me about crowdfunding. They're like, "Oh, Rise and Shine, you put on Kickstarter." I was like, "Me to put Rise and Shine on Kickstarter? Absolutely not." I do like the concept though, and I had thought of something similar, so I might do that, and that ended up becoming Uplus. But I completely hear what you mean. That even the point Uplus has like you can donate for something, like let's say somebody's wedding. Let's say a friend of yours creates a wedding group. You can donate. What do we call it? Like without your name being seen, so they can just see, so and so. They'll just see a donation of $50 came in. They won't see from who. Maybe just the couple will see, but the rest of the people on the group chat won't see, because we had to take that into consideration, that not everybody is going to want their business out there, which is also why I think we have a problem with angel networks in Rwanda. And also why, like the Lion's Den or Shark Tank I don't think that would work in Rwanda, because we're very, like, we don't want people to know that we have money, or that, we would talk about money. Like there's still very much, it's like taboo to talk about money, or that we would, like, but it hinders investment, because it also hinders role models. Like, where are the role models? Like, we all know who are good business people here, but we don't really have access to them to hear about their journey, right? Especially like the older people. I mean, so I think it's slowly changing. I think this new group of young people, millennials, do not care at all. They will put their business out there. I love them. They're such free spirits. I think I'm a millennial by technicality, by like a year, but I'm really not.
hold
I'm
on
very
to it. We can still hold on to it as long as.
no, no, no. They really are a different breed, but I love their freeness, and I think that's exactly what we need. We need to be free to fail. I think we need to be free to make mistakes. We need to be free to try new things, and that's really what entrepreneurship is all about. It's like just it's the hustle. It's just like go out there, see your idea come to life. If it doesn't work, pivot. If it doesn't work, do something completely different. But you need to be able to do that. Yeah.
Wow, wow. No, that's those are some great learning lessons along the way, and like to your point, I think it's changing, right? Like I go on social media and see the level of engagement, and people are putting their business out there, and like you said, when you're getting into business entrepreneurship, like you have to be comfortable with that, and so I think we're kind of at a crossroads, especially in our case, culturally speaking, in the case of Rwanda, like we're penetrating a little bit past than what it used to be before. And I think in order for us to get to that next level where we see other regions really putting themselves out there, and then that's when a lot of
Yeah.
good success could definitely come from. Okay, last question. This one's question is regarding, so what has been your biggest challenge while running UP Plus, and what's next for UP Plus?
My biggest challenge, I think for Uplus specifically, has been like it's a fintech company. So fintech at the time when I sat down and I got partners and all of that, it was very new. So there's a lot of like regulation around it. So I think that was just the hardest, and then even telecoms, you're trying to be an extension, right? You're trying to help them reach different like levels of different customer bases, but also diversify their product, and they think that you're competition. And it's like, no, you're just I'm an extension of you. So I think in the beginning, especially, I would say regulation from the regulators, and then just like the top dogs not really understanding that there is room for everyone. I do think that that's changing. And I think we are definitely becoming, especially with the help of COVID, but one of the benefits of COVID has been becoming more of a cashless economy. So really people understanding the need for fintech and money moving virtually and all of that. I remember even mobile money had a hard time of an uptake in the beginning compared to our neighboring countries, because people just didn't really get it. But I think they absolutely do now. And I think there's definitely room for companies like Uplus and other fintech companies to have, more dynamic products and offerings for the customers. So those were some of the challenges in the beginning, and it's still, it's every day,
Yeah.
always something. Yeah.
For sure. Well, thanks for that. Thanks for that feedback and that comment. So yeah, this I think brings us to an end of today's session. Really amazing engagement. Love the questions. Thank you, Diana, for really, offering up your time and going through, providing answers to all the participants that had questions. Maybe just lastly, in terms of last thoughts in which you want to convey to our participants in terms of encouragement for those, in terms of next steps, in terms of aspiring entrepreneur, in terms of how to doing business in Rwanda or the continent, what would you say? And then also, where can people find out more about your services that you provide, and where can they go to for that? So over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Imanzi, for inviting me. Thanks for having me on. Thanks everybody for watching and for asking some great questions. I think what I would say to entrepreneurs on the continent and beyond is that the time is now. The time is definitely now. I think even with COVID, never waste a crisis. There's lots of opportunities, lots of ways to become innovative. I think we have never been more connected and engaged. And it's never been easier to start a business. It's never been less expensive. There's so many opportunities out there. So definitely give yourself a shot. Really, an entrepreneur, it's a calling. I don't think you can wake up and decide I'm going to be a business person. I think it's really on your heart. And it's really because entrepreneurs are problem solvers. And you can also be an intrapreneur, right? You can be within your career. If you are currently employed, you can also be innovative in that space. And that's really what we're talking about problem solving. So, that's what the world needs. Lots of problem solvers. So definitely go out there and be great. And you always will have me as as a cheerleader from the sidelines. And you can definitely look for me on LinkedIn, Dianne Dusaidi. You can just hit me up in the chats for any questions. Always happy to help. For Big Sis, you can go on my Instagram. And then there's a link in my bio that will go towards bookings. So yeah, Imanzi, thank you so much. And I'm really so proud of you. Rwandapreneur is a great idea. And I have been a fan and a cheerleader on the side. And I've seen some of your other interviews. And I think this is really a great initiative. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you to all our participants that joined us here today. You definitely left me with a lot of good insights in terms of, next steps. Actually, there was a great question that Ignace asked in terms of, how can the role of the diaspora in terms of also investing, within those early stage companies. And so that's also something that, we've been thinking around Entrepreneur in terms of, our role and what, we could bring in terms of, essentially crowdsourcing from the diaspora, but like how to structurize, making it in a structured, format, and then we could essentially be that other form of VC. So
you need to tell us, you in the diaspora, what does the diaspora want? Do they want to come and do, that we do like fam trips and tourism to come see the gorillas, Would you want a business trip? And I think we do it the opposite way, right? Like Rwanda will go to North America or Europe and do Rwanda Day, but can we do Rwanda Day versa, where you come and you see different industries, right? Whether it's tech, education, fintech, etc. We can set that up. That's something that we can. COVID is a bit annoying, right, with all the travel restrictions, but it's something that we can do. We can also do it virtually. We can, bring other people together. If it's about crowdfunding for businesses in the diaspora, or for people in the we can do that on Uplus. I mean, there are lots of opportunities, and I think we should always leverage. That's what you were asking earlier about networks. It's really about partnerships. It's not about networks, partnerships. How you do what you do, and you have the diaspora. You know who they are and what they're interested in, and I know this side. So how can we bring things together, and how can we just make the journey easier for others? I think that is always what we have to keep in mind.
For sure, just making a win-win situation. So 100% agree. Well, this was great. Thanks everyone for joining. So we will be sending a follow-up email with a survey, and we'll also include some of the links that were referenced, or we'll include the links to the sites that were referenced. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at Rwandapreneur, so info@rwandapreneur.com. We will be having our next session is going to be on December 18th, so just before the holidays. And actually, that one's going to be interesting. We're actually going to be having a Nigerian American who has been investing in Africa and in Rwanda for the e-mobility, like the ones with the bike sharing. And so he'll also be talking about his journey there in Rwanda, and then also the various opportunities in which people that want to invest in the company. So obviously, seeing where Rwanda and the continent is going in terms of the green economy and moving towards that direction. So it's actually fairly interesting. So look out for that. So follow us on social media, and also subscribe to our mailing list, and we'll make sure that you get those details. So with that said, thank you everyone for joining, and hope you all have a great rest of the day. So Dan, it was great to connect. Greetings to the family.
You too. Say hi to V and everyone.
All right.
Okay, take care. Bye.